What's up, everybody, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of the Willpower Podcast. My name is William Davenport, and I am your host. And with that, I am beyond honored and excited to bring in a true professional, a master at his craft, the head of sports medicine for the Vancouver Bandits, Kosta Ikonomou. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, William. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I want to jump straight into it. I want to know, for you getting into the field of sports medicine, who were some early influences you had in your life and maybe some things in your youth that kind of led you towards that path?
So early days, obviously, I kind of grew up, being an athlete, playing playing basketball, wanting to be a professional basketball player.
Yes.
You grow up in the 90s. It's like it was like Bulls, Jordan. We had the Grizzlies in town, so it was like that's all I wanted to do. So, things kind of led down that way as I got older through high school and then university. I didn't play university sports. It was almost like, okay, I had to make a decision of, am I going to kind of pursue this or am I going to do something else? And it was a real big crossroad for me. And it was also kind of a bit of a shock because you go from being part of this like team environment, all your friends, playing high school basketball, which is like some of the best times of your life, right? And then you graduate and that's all kind of, now you gotta figure out how socially you're gonna connect, how are you gonna take your time to do other things. So it was, I decided I'm like, okay, I should get to focus on my studies, but luckily, and for myself, I didn't know that I wanted to go down this field right away until I got an opportunity to join as a student athletic trainer for University of Fraser Valley, and just so happened to be with one of the soccer teams. So I jumped on. I basically learned, how to tape ankles. I traveled with the team, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. I'm not playing, but I'm a part of the team. I'm a part of the goals. I love being back in that environment, and that's kind of what inspired me to then being like, okay, this is what I want to do. So one was just that opportunity that came in, and I ended up taking it and had a good experience. Equally, I could have had a terrible experience and gone down a different path.
Absolutely.
So luckily enough, that was, it worked out for me from then to kind of give me that inspiration and that kind of confidence that, okay, this is a profession. This is a path. And then also through that, I met other physios. So one of my classes I took in university, I had to shadow a physio. And I ended up shadowing Eddie Cannon, who's with the Vancouver Whitecaps right now. And he's like, great guy, let me shadow him, he also just gave me the opportunity to, be around him in the clinic, and he's a great guy. And I was like, this is also great. So it's kind of, I would say Eddie was a good mentor early on. He, answered all my questions. He didn't. You will meet people, I feel, who would be like, oh, you don't want to become a physio, or you don't want to do that. It's too much hard work. It's too much that. Which I also met those people, but he was quite encouraging. And he's like, yeah, you can do it. He's like, it's possible. So that was probably,
That's awesome.
he was my, one of those guys who, gave me the confidence to pursue it. The other avenue, so I was also, growing up, my parents owned a restaurant. So it was always like one of us was going to either take over this restaurant. And the more we worked in the restaurant, me and my brothers were like, the more we didn't want to do that. So we had to figure it out. So it was almost like, okay.
What kind of food were they serving?
It was a Greek restaurant,
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
so that's, and it was kind of like those were my two paths, either take on the family business or figure something out and get inspired by something else. And, I chose that path. So that was probably, yeah. So one, it was a bit of a necessity of being like, I got to figure it out. and
Driven by
one is
fear almost
like,
because you don't want to work in the restaurant business.
yeah, which is so funny. I got accepted to physio school in Canada, but I actually did my physio school in the UK. And they were like,
Oh,
why
wow.
did you apply here? And I said, well, if I can be frankly honest, my parents own a restaurant. I just want to get away from it. And they were like, so
That's so funny.
yeah, me and my other two brothers, we all went to university abroad. So, but you
Wow.
know,
Damn. I
love
love
my
it.
parents,
I'll be able to cut this part
love
out.
working. Yep. Okay.
100%. Absolutely. So a lot of people, I mean, first of all, let me start with how important was it that the fact that you not only had a mentor and a positive influence with the physio you got to shadow, but he was actually there for you, encouraging you through that time. And I think you hear it so often, especially in sports. Someone had an introduction into, let's say they had a coach or they had some type of mentor and they had a negative experience. And that can really make or break a lot of kids' kind of outlook on the either field of work or the sport in itself. And a lot of kids quit due to that. So for you, you had a positive experience, but you mentioned you've also seen maybe other perspectives from other people that said, don't get into this field, it's too much work. So for you, looking back at it, having seen both sides and also having experienced a positive outlook initially, what would you say the advice you would give to someone that didn't have that same experience, that had that negative output and that kind of negative perspective put on them from someone else's, I guess, outlook on an experience?
Yeah, it's a tough situation if somebody, you know, you're a young person, you want to go into something and then just being discouraged. It
Yeah.
it's hard because one, you're going to meet those people throughout your career. There's going to be people whether you get a certain level and they don't want to talk to you because maybe they might feel threatened. If you're especially if you're in a town with not that many jobs, not that many sports teams. I can tell you, Vancouver before the Bandits, there was basically at one point, there's the Vancouver Canucks, BC Lions, and the Whitecaps. And that's kind
Yeah.
of, or there's two universities and literally one mainly in down in Vancouver, UBC. So, jobs are not, there's not that many of them. I think it's like important to just be confident in yourself, trust the process of it, and know that every time somebody tells you that you shouldn't or you can't, you have to have that internal locus of control. Whereas like you just kind of like the positive self-talk, the believing in yourself, and having that over not being, influenced too much of the external stuff. So
Yeah.
really hard as a young person because that could we're so just like influential at that point. We don't really have the life experience and people can leave bad taste from us. But yeah, you just gotta, the best part is surround yourself with people who are either shared goals. So if your friends also want to, work in sport, I think it's a great thing to have those people around you. One, because they'll be encouraging, they might help you, and you guys all have there's enough jobs for everybody, and there's like but it may be not in that one specific field, but at least you surrounded yourself with friends who are pursuing that stuff, right? So maybe if you got turned down, he's there to pick you up. So it's better to, so I would say, stay positive, really, work on that self-talk for yourself, if that's what you want to do, and really surround yourself with people with shared goals. I think that's going to, early on, that's going to help you a lot.
Yeah, and to speak on that as well, I think it's if you want it bad enough, you can make it happen. You just got to work for it, and even if you maybe had a negative introduction to it, it doesn't have to define your future and your whole output into it. So I think that's a great point that you made. Now, I
Yeah.
introduced you as the head of sports medicine for the Vancouver Bandits. You touched on it a little bit, but I want to know more about, kind of speak on the famous culture of the Bandits culture, right? I think I remember watching T. Jass's videos with Coach Julius, and he mentioned that he wants to kind of look at the Vancouver Bandits and be looked at upon the same way as the Miami Heat, how there's heat culture and how it's work hard and there's these expectations. They want to be that kind of standard for the league as a whole, and I would even say as Canada basketball as a whole.
So we've had so many pros here that couldn't handle it, and they're like telling me, "F off, it's too much. I'm a pro. I don't train like that." And then I just always say, "Okay, well then, we're different."
For you, speak on the culture. Speak on your time with the Bandits so far. You've been there since the beginning when they were the Fraser Valley Bandits, right? So speak on that as a whole, how it's grown, the culture, and even how you got that role in the first place.
Yeah, so it's 2019, I believe, the opening season. It's been a while as well. So 2019, they were playing in Abbotsford. It was very much like if you've ever worked in a company that's literally a startup, that's how I would describe it as. Just like it was Andrew Dillon, who's still, the president, like the head coach, and, there was Katya, who is now with the 905 as the athletic trainer. And I had just heard about this, and actually speaking about people who would help you, my friend Matt, who is on the team now, he was the one who was like, "Hey, there's a basketball team that you should apply to them," because I was coming from working at Chelsea Football Club with the academy from England, so I was coming back to Vancouver. So I was looking to get into sport, and as a good friend, he kind of tipped me off on this, the CEBL, and I was starting. So it kind of just started from there. So I ended up messaging Dylan. He, multiple times, he ended up connecting me with Kadia, and I started off just being there as a support for Kadia. So she was the head athletic therapist, and I essentially started with just covering weekends, whatever she needed to do. She wanted to go on holiday, I can cover that. She needed one, trip to be covered because she was working at Trinity Western. I said, yeah, I'll cover that as well. So that's how I kind of got my foot in the door. But it was a very much like, there wasn't that many fans. What you see, the product you see now, it was, completely different. There was a lot of losing early on. I remember our assistant coach, Rands, was actually on the team in 2019. Wow. Actually, I remember getting him, I think 5 games. I think we were like 0-5, 0-6, and we got him and we started winning some games. But you can tell it was just like a mesh. There was no real structure. Everybody was trying to figure it out. The coach was trying to figure it out. The league was trying to figure it out of, how many, players, how if a player gets injured, how long can they stay on the roster, the trades that were happening. It was just a constant revolving door. And then I would say when Kyle Julius came in, he really, I think, set the tone from the ground up. It was like culture, community, structure, and high character. That was his one big thing. And I think that was really saw the difference in this is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to act around each other. This is how we're going to be in the community. This is how we're going to, support each other. And it really is we keep knocking on the door, and I really do feel that it's our time to win a championship. And I think it's again, that trust the process, that these building blocks are in place. And I feel once we win one, I feel like we're going to go potentially, I don't want to assume, but it's,
not
you
one,
never know.
Not
We
two,
go back,
not three,
not
not
three,
four,
yeah.
not 5.
Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7.
Yeah. Exactly. I think
Go ahead.
Good. No, I think it's all because Kyle Julius is, the structure. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I was going to touch on that. I was very lucky to have Coach Julius on this podcast, and I got to interview him and introduce him to a young man that I mentor and everything. And I felt his energy straight away. and you can just tell like the way he holds himself to such a high standard with everything he does, and it comes from, you know, his love for the game, but also his upbringing, being around a coach and having that influence in his life as well. So that's really cool to see how that transpired across his journey, and then see where he's at today and building that franchise to where it's at now. I mean, we're talking about the top program in basketball in the country, and it's a 6-year-old league, and that's, like, to me, in my opinion, I think it's unbelievable as far as how they set the standard in professional basketball. It's really cool, and it was awesome to see last year, having it be documented on TJS's series and get the behind the scenes and see you in that series as well and the work that you do. So I think that was really awesome as well.
It was great.
And I want to touch on, like, kind of early on in the journey, you don't necessarily get these opportunities straight out the gate to, you know, become the head of sports medicine for the Vancouver Bandits. Even prior to that, you were in Chelsea, like you mentioned. What advice would you give to someone that maybe has the confidence, has the experience, has the education, but they're kind of having a hard time in the field of work and getting that opportunity, where maybe they feel like they should be at these levels and getting these opportunities, but they're not getting them? What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, it's one thing I think throughout our, like, being a physio, and then, or it's maybe you're an athletic trainer or you're a strength coach. It's a process. We all want to, you know, as soon as we graduate, get those opportunities. Which some people, you know, a year or two, they do get an opportunity. It's just timing, whether they know somebody, and it just happens. But you can't let that stuff, like, discourage you. For myself, it was just building on kind of what you're currently doing. And I think where I am today is probably, you know, I can trace it back to University of Fraser Valley. And the strange connection is I'm at UFE as a student trainer. The head coach, Alan Arrington, who was, like, a great coach, is best friends with Alex McKechnie, who's with the head of performance of the Raptors, who's also good friends with, you know, their physio that they connected me, that who now is with Team Canada Soccer, who's, like, kind of, so there's all these, like, small connections, which something when I was 19 years old, I had no idea. And now 10 years later, I'm still kind of, like, 1 degree away from, like, the connection that I first started. So one, it's like you never know who you meet and how it's going to, you know, progress from there. But I think it's, like, really important to, when you meet somebody, to not only introduce yourself, tell them what you want to do. Because there's a lot of people that actually want to help you, but they don't know that you want to work in the NBA. And maybe they can't help you today, but they can help you, you know, in some way. Or I always ask, like, can you connect me to somebody that you feel can help me out? And it might just be somebody who's not in a position, for example, like, I'm a physio, but I had a chat with the athletic trainer from the Sacramento Kings, for example. So it's like, not really, I'm not an athletic trainer, but it's like I met somebody who, you know, maybe 1 degree away might one day help me out into something else. So I would say, let people know what you want. Tell them, ask them, can they introduce you to someone else? And most people are very, very open to that, I think. And, you know, you have to keep asking, because it's like job interviews, right? You're going to apply to 50 and you might get 2. So, but those 2 will help you out. And so that's what that would be my advice.
Also, another perspective is always, for sure, and I think another perspective is always, like, the worst thing they can say is no. I mean, that's always the outlook I look at when I think if I'm shooting my shot, the worst thing they can say is no. What else could happen, right? And then also using tools like LinkedIn, like Instagram, like these different platforms with technology now we have, that we can just reach out to people and ask for the advice. Because more times than not, people are wanting to give a lending hand because they see themselves in you. They've been in your position trying to figure things out and get to the stage that they're at and the level they're at today. So I think that's amazing advice. Now, you have a different perspective. Me, as a skills development coach and a mentor and a coach in that sense, I work with athletes a lot on the mental health side and the skills side. You get a whole new perspective where you're looking at the health and the body of work and how they put in the work off the court and on the court, especially with their bodies, but even their minds as well. But for you, in your perspective, what separates a good athlete to a great athlete?
Yeah, I think a great athlete has, I would say, good habits. that would probably be a main thing. And habits are built, I feel, if I'm talking to somebody super young, your habits are built from like, let's say you're in university, your habits in studying is like your practice. Your habits of making sure you get enough sleep before your exam or the next day because you got to pay attention in class, that's a habit. Your exam is your game, right? The better you prepare for it, you're going to prepare for the game or for your exam. So an athlete as well, how he structures his day or their day, whether it's like, how much sleep are they getting? Is there nutrition for like recovery and performance? Who are they hanging around with? Are the people they hanging around with a bit of a bad apples that like bring them down, or are they ones that are actually boost them up? Are they? So I say that would be one. How they're training? Are they? Have a consistent training in the gym? Are they, there's the mental side of it, are some people use tools like journaling? Maybe they're actually seeing accounts, they're working through like working on themselves, right? Because that's the thing that we all should be working on, is like bettering ourselves in many categories. So I would say a really good athlete has good habits or is working to getting good habits, right? As a lot of the athletes are going to be, just because you have a 45-inch vertical, yes, you're a good athlete, but then it's going to also, those little things is what's going to also separate you. And I think I see that like
Absolutely.
coming into sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, even especially working in pro sports, this is a business, right? So you can have this, physical tools and athleticism and being someone that can jump out the gym. But if you're showing up late to practice, if you're not being professional, and you're being hyper emotional towards your coach giving you feedback and things like that, like you're mentioning, just the good habits is key factor. And that means so much more than the things you think of when, I tell a young kid I'm working with about having good habits. They think, okay, I have to stretch, I have to eat, and I have to sleep. But it's so much more than that. It's the way you carry yourself. It's the habits, emotional intelligence of being able to take that criticism and understand that people are trying to help you, not trying to bring you down. So I think that's a really cool perspective that you're giving with that. And it speaks to, it affects so much more than just sports, but life as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's, yeah, exactly. Very well said. And we see,
What do you think with young athletes that they kind of not miss out on, but they're not prioritizing as much as they should when it comes to, a lot of the kids I work with? I always tell them, make sure you're stretching, make sure you're maintaining good form with shooting, things like that. And they kind of slip up on that stuff. They think of other stuff like, I want to go and watch a mixtape and practice isolation moves. So from an athletic standpoint, a physical body standpoint from an athlete, a young athlete, what do you think they're not prioritizing as much as they should be?
Mm-hmm. I see a lot of, so I'll say in clinic, I'll have a lot of kids come to me age like 16 to 21. And one of the things is they do a lot of things, but sometimes they almost do too much, I feel, especially these days, in the sense of they are, depends of like, that Kobe mentality of trying to, okay, I'm going to, there's so many games that they're involved, but I don't think they're actually not strong enough to meet the demand. So a lot of the kids that I see, I'm like, you got to work on your body, work on like, you shouldn't be seeing me for these little knick-knack injuries every like 3-4 weeks that you're getting from pickup. So a lot of this stuff is like, as we get older, your body, we grow. So there's a lot of changes that are happening. So I think strength as a young individual, you work on your skills, but actually really focusing on your base strength, right? Because that's going to help you when maybe you go to college, and that if you already have a handle on that, that's a big one. And so young kids now to get in the gym, structured programs,
In the
meet
weight room, let's
somebody.
clarify, in the weight room,
Yeah,
not the
in the
basketball
weight
court for
room.
10 hours, then calling it a day and not
Yeah,
stretching. We're saying the weight room,
yeah,
establishing that
yeah,
foundation, that base you're talking about. And I think even with your social media alone, you can see so much content that could benefit them. So I'll make sure to link that down below where they can see
yeah.
and see what that foundational work looks like as well. So that's huge. Now, for you, you mentioned you were in school at 19 years old. You're figuring out what you want to do in your career. You maybe had an idea of what success looked like for you. How would you say that's changed over the last years since you started your professional career and doing this full time? How has your idea and perspective of success changed from 19 years old to where you are today when it comes to your work?
Yeah, I mean, success is relevant, right? It's, depends what one person thinks is successful. Some people might think, oh, I need to make this amount or do this
Yeah.
or to be successful. I think it's like, for me, one of the things is I always want to be growing. And if I can say I'm a better physio, better person than I was the year before, that's success to me. One of the things is like, as long as I'm working on, my skills, myself, I feel success will come. So it's that, that I would say that would be kind of what I see as success. If I'm sitting in a environment where I just feel like I'm just rolling through the mud, just going through the paces, not really much, then I feel that's not for me. I feel I'm not being successful for myself. So that's actually hard
It's a
question to
tough question. I'm
ask.
sorry. I threw.
It's a tough question.
I love it though. It's loving what you're doing day to day and enjoying the environment. And I'm thinking of it more from the standpoint of like, as someone in your position in sports medicine, how do you define a successful season in the sense of like everybody's healthy, nobody's getting injured, or even like are guys gonna always come early to the gym and stay late? Like I don't know. I'm trying to just ask you the question of
Right.
what's a successful season in regards to your profession specifically, and how you look at an outlook of a season, for example. But that
Right.
was a great answer
So,
you gave as well. I love that even more, if anything. But
okay,
just out of
great.
curiosity
So,
for this one.
so if the start of the season, let's, for example, with the Bandits,
Yes.
what would success look like for us? For me, yeah, I want to make sure that the best players are available for Coach Julius to have for selection, because if the guys are healthy and able to not only like able to play in the game but also practice, I feel
Yeah.
that as clinicians we're measured of like, oh, this guy didn't miss that many games, but actually I feel if a player's not practicing, he's not getting better. So we should be making sure that these players also are available for practice. And sure, some might not be at we have to modify some of their practice, but I believe that you're not just sitting on the sidelines with ice. You have to be doing something. If your knee is hurting, you're doing form shooting.
Yeah.
So for me, make sure the players have a healthy season, have things in place that everybody is listening to, the other coaches of they're doing their strength programs. Are they meeting with the mental performance coach, right? If they're struggling with something, are they having an open communication? If they come to me, I make sure I relay it to the right person. And as long as we
Yep.
as a sports medicine team work together and in collaboration, I think that sets the foundation for a good season. You're going to have injuries. That's something that we try to decrease the risk of, but they're going to be there. It's the kind of nobody could, if anyone says, oh, I can take injury risk down to, zero, they're lying, because, things happen.
Absolutely. You can't control it.
Environment,
Exactly.
you can't control it. So,
Absolutely. In professional sports, players being on or off the court can lead to the cost of hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, depending what level we're talking about and what sport it is, right? So for you, you have to deal with a lot of that pressure as well, making that maybe that call of whether or not this player should be on the field or on the court. How do you deal with that pressure? And maybe speak on something you're available and wanting to share in regards to, have you had an experience where maybe the business side of things kind of came in, where it's this player has to play through this because it's the playoffs, because it's the finals, or whatever the case may be, of maybe having to put you know, your emotional human side aside, but in business saying, okay, we need him on the floor right now. Can you speak on some type of story like that? If maybe you've heard it from someone else or if you've experienced it.
It's really hard if you're a team physio, team athletic therapist, or like head of performance, sports medicine in a team. You are technically employed by the team.
Yeah.
However, your main thing is to make sure the players are healthy. So you really have this, you know, the team is paying you to make sure, but the player is trusting you that you're going to look after their health. But the pressure of the team can, really overpower that. So it is something that anyone who works long enough in this field is going to experience. There's many cases of, you know, athletes wanting to play. So you either have to get them to say, hey, you have to understand the risks. You have to understand that this is, you know, this can happen. And then on the flip side, there's also, you know, the team that says, I want them to play. So you have to show the player, you know, that maybe you're feeling a little discomfort, but your strength measures this is actually, you know, you're very low risk. So, and then you have to make a shared decision with the player and the coaching staff. So that's one way of, you know, kind of controlling that. But there is going to be instances